Hi, everyone. Welcome inside the State Champs Network Studios, episode 3 of State Champs Scout Show. We are presented by Lawrence Technological University. You know, the Blue Devils offer a unique program where you can recruit yourself, and you can do it by starting at ltuathletics.com. Now, this is an unusual week due to the Michigan news that we had regarding football being pushed to the spring in Ohio and Indiana. We now know that games will begin as scheduled. What we figured we'd do for this week's show is bring in the guy who covers all of Midwest football at 24/7 Sports. He is a member of the State Champ Scout team. He is Allen Trieu, so he is going to be here for the duration and give his insight as to how this affects recruiting now that we are beginning to absorb the news that is happening throughout the tri-state area. So, Allen, first off, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course, thanks for having me.
All right, so I know this is unusual times for all of us, especially in the recruiting world. We were all kind of a little shocked by the news that we got on Friday regarding Michigan moving its high school football season to the spring. And we're going to talk about that more in just a bit. But since you focus the majority of your work for us here on the show currently on what's happening in Ohio, this is great news that the governor says that they're going to go ahead with contact and non-contact sports, and that schools can opt in or out if they decide they want to play football.
Yeah, if you play high school football in the state of Ohio, I think you have to look no further than your neighbors to the north and look at Michigan and feel fortunate that those kids are going to have a season. It's going to give kids who are being recruited or want the opportunity to be recruited a chance to get some film together. It's in a limited capacity, but still plenty of games and available dates there for those guys to be able to do that.
And I know it's kind of obvious, but talk about the advantages now and maybe the disadvantages in the Wolverine state that Indiana and Ohio, should things work out, that they will have a fall football season, as from a recruiting angle.
So first, with Ohio and Indiana, with a lot of the schools up this way, with the Big Ten and the MAC and the GLIAC and all those conferences not playing football, these coaches aren't going to have as much to do as they normally would in the fall, not even close to what they would normally be doing. So they're going to be paying close attention to what's happening in these games every Friday. And so even though other states like Michigan, those kids are going to end up possibly playing in the spring, well, the Big Ten and those conferences may be playing in the spring. So in Ohio and Indiana, the states that play in the fall, you're going to have college coaches with their full attention on what's happening on Friday night. So it's going to give those guys a good chance to be seen and be recruited. Now, for the kids in Michigan, I think it all depends on what you supplement that with. We don't know what that's going to look like here. Presumably, these kids aren't just going to sit around and do nothing. So talking about putting together workout films, if 7-on-7s are allowed, if camps and showcases are allowed, what else can you do at this point to put yourself in front of those coaches who do have the downtime to look at you? So it's not completely over for these kids in the state of Michigan. If you're a 22 or a 23 or a 24 recruit, you get plenty of time, may have a spring season, but those kids are going to have to find some ways in the fall, just as they did through the spring and summer, to put something on video to get to the college coaches.
So the other interesting thing as far as recruiting are the big recruits. And will they even play a senior season? We often see a lot of the, big-time recruits tend to early enroll. And so by January, they are already on their prospective university's campus. Now, if you have a conference such as the Big Ten and the MAC playing a spring season, which in essence, those kids who would have been seniors in the fall are still seniors and they're playing their spring season, are we going to see as much early enrollment happen at particular universities, or is this just kind of going to be a wait and see?
I think one thing we need to wait on is whether or not those conferences are going to allow schools to go over normal scholarship limit, because if they give seniors in college that year back, and then you have early enrollees coming in, and you have another class of freshmen coming in, you're going to probably have to allow those schools to go over the 85 scholarship limit. So that's something that I think the Big Ten schools are waiting on. You are seeing a lot of kids in some other states who had their high school seasons canceled start to look into early enrollment. You've already seen some guys reclassify in other places. So those are going to be options, but probably only really for the guys who are the top big time recruits. I don't think that there's enough availability of numbers and scholarships to allow that to every single high school senior. And I do think there will be a number of seniors who, if given the chance to play a spring season, are going to want to do that and see if they can play themselves into some additional scholarships or other opportunities.
Absolutely. And I think we'll see a lot of that. I guess the other big question is, especially for those here in Michigan and for states like Ohio, Indiana, and elsewhere, because there is no fall football, are we going to see a mass exodus of transfers by seniors who want to have that fall experience so they can maximize their opportunities? Because, like you mentioned earlier in the program, they're going to have a lot of college coaches' attention because they're not having seasons themselves.
Yeah, I do think there will be some who explore the opportunity to move to another state, although there's a lot of different variables there. Obviously, you have to physically move to another state and transfer and play, and then, and decide if you can move back and play in the spring. Just taking the roadmap of Illinois, who I think was the first state in the Midwest to say we're not playing football in the fall, there haven't been too many transfers out of that state. There's only been a handful, and it's been guys. Unique. One player was a kid who was picking up football high school football for the first time this fall, and really needed that film to show colleges. So his situation was extremely unique. I think for the average high school senior who just wants to either get more offers or different offers or get a chance to get any offers at all, I think some of those players. So rather than take the whole chance of transferring, have to jump over all the hoops and the hurdles that it takes to be able to transfer and play in another state. You may see a little bit of that, but I don't think it hasn't been widespread as we expected when we first started seeing states fall to the spring.
Okay. And for the sake of uprooting entire families, I would hope that wouldn't be the case, and hopefully spring will again provide the opportunity. And when we say spring, we are the MHSAA has said, because I know a lot are worried about those who play multiple sports, is that it's very likely that they may move up the winter sports season a little bit. Granted, things are doing well as far as the pandemic being controlled here in the state of Michigan, whereas perhaps basketball and sports like hockey will start maybe as soon as November 1st. Maybe they can finish prior to March. Have the football season take place over the course of March and April, and maybe delay a little bit of the spring sports season. I know they're open to the idea of having the spring sports conclude as late as July 1st, which would be a couple weeks beyond what the traditional end date would be for spring sports. So there is that opportunity. I know the kids are worried about the fact that they may not have the opportunity to, let's say you're a baseball and a football player, play both. I think they're going to make that work and be able to provide that opportunity. And so, of course, that would perhaps ease the mind of those who maybe would consider transfer otherwise.
Yeah, and another thing to consider is that traditionally during the spring, that part of the recruiting calendar is when colleges can come to your school and watch you work out in the gym, in the weight room, and maybe see some on-field work, at least bump into you in the hallway. So if that holds true, college coaches will all be on the road at that time, and you would think that those games would then be crawling with college coaches, because if they're not playing their own seasons right then and they're allowed to be on the road and they've lost this entire year of evaluation, I would think there will be a lot of college coaches at those high school games. So that's maybe an additional advantage, a silver lining to football being moved to spring.
All right. Well, Allen Trieu covers Midwest recruiting for 247sports.com. He is a member of the state champs scout team. And since we have Allen here, and because he does cover the majority of the Midwest, we got to get some recruiting hits on what's happening. And let's start with Ohio. What's some recruiting news there?
Yeah, Dublin Kaufman's Byron Threets committed to Cincinnati this week. He was committed to Purdue, reopened his process, looked at some other schools, including West Virginia, but chose Cincinnati, where Luke Fickell and his staff have done a really good job keeping the Ohio kids in state. They're obviously winning football games and are expected to have a really good team this fall. So recruiting has been the foundation of that success, and they get a really good player here in Brian, who was an outstanding kick returner, running back, receiver, but they're going to play him on the defensive side of the ball where those ball skills and change of direction going to be a real asset for them. CJ Hankins, a linebacker from Lakewood St. Edward, committed to Georgetown. Big pickup for the Hoyas. Had a couple of MAC offers, chooses to go to Georgetown, a guy who filled the stat sheet over 100 tackles as a junior, 80 tackles as a sophomore for one of the best programs in the state. And then in the state of Michigan, Maxwell Hairston from West Bloomfield, cornerback, committed to Kentucky. They've come up here and done a really good job recruiting the state of Michigan, so they keep that rolling with a guy who was a big-time player for Ron Bellamy last season.
All right. Anything going on in the Hoosier State?
Well, they're going to play some football this week, and so I have nothing too new recently. Indianapolis Pike offensive tackle Mohamed Musa committed to Purdue. He's probably the last big-time recruit to choose a Power 5 school from that state. 6'4" offensive tackle. Got the Purdue offer at the beginning of August, knew that was where he wanted to go, wants to go into engineering, so great fit there for him academically and athletically. So looking forward to seeing him play this season. Extremely athletic pickup for the Boilers. So I think he was the last one to make that choice before they kind of got into season prep here.
And I know everybody in Indiana is excited to get the fall sports season going. It's that sense of normalcy and that sense of coming together and getting some football and other sports going. Obviously, being a week earlier than most states, they're going to have a lot of attention on them this weekend. We look forward to football beginning. And with Michigan having football in the spring, we're going to get a whole year of football this year, Allen. So you'll be very busy. And once again, I thank you for joining us today and giving us your time. And we'll look forward to your Ohio report next week.
Sounds good, Lauren. I'll be down in Elkhart watching the first night of kickoff in Indiana. So excited to see some football myself, but always good to talk to you.
All right, fantastic. And we will have highlights of many games from Indiana beginning next week. And our Extra Point podcast featuring Greg Rakestraw will also be taking place, and you'll be able to listen to that next Monday. Once again, thank you for tuning in to the Scout Show. We will see you next week. State Champs Scout Show is proudly presented by Lawrence Technological University, where Blue Devils dare.